Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. And can I thank the Backbench Business Committee and honourable and right honourable members from across the House for securing this important debate. Transgender people make an enormous contribution to our society, and as well as discussing the difficulties that transgender people face each day, I hope that this debate can also be used to celebrate transgender people across the UK. The hate and prejudice that lurks in our society is sickening, but what is remarkable is the positivity that shines in contrast to this. Ranging from the brilliant author and historian Jan Morris to the late businesswoman and documentary star Stephanie Booth, in Wales some of our most remarkable people identify as transgender. The obstacles standing between transgender people and equality, however, should be a cause of concern for all of us. In this House and in wider society, we often talk of working towards a more equal community, but in practice this is a distant future for transgender people. The lack of awareness and education of the issues that transgender people face is shocking, and the lack of action to tackle the problem is more so. In recent months and years, efforts have been made to increase awareness of the difficulties that transgender people face. And although there is still a long way to go, the contribution made by organisations ranging from news outlets to film production companies has been incredibly important. Channel 4's Born in the Wrong Body season raised awareness of how life is for transgender people before, during and after transition, whilst the BBC have made similar productions including Just a Girl, which tells the powerful story of young trans people. There have also been great initiatives by public bodies and institutions, and as my honourable friend for Cardiff South and Penarth mentioned earlier, I was proud to march at Pride Cymru this year and to see South Wales Police, for example, marching with special shoulder patches demonstrating their support for the LGBT+ community. Similarly, the British Army recently won the Pink News Public Sector Equality Award for their work supporting the LGBT personnel, including those that identify as transgender. Schemes such as these are incredibly important to contrast the discrimination and prejudice that is part of the day-to-day life for transgender people in the UK, which at worst can create unimaginable danger and put transgender people in immense harm. In the UK in 2015, 582 incidents of hate crime against transgender people were reported. This is a figure that has trebled in the past 5 years, as mentioned by the Right Honourable Lady, the Chair of the Select Committee. These incidents have included harassment, threatening behaviour, sexual assault and other violence. Yet of the 582 incidents last year, only 19 led to prosecution. This cannot be acceptable, Mr Deputy Speaker. The issue of transphobic violence is a global problem. So far in 2016, it is estimated that at least 26 transgender people have been murdered in the United States, whereas in Brazil it is estimated that around 60 were murdered in the first month of this year alone. Free and Equal, the UN campaign for LGBT equality, have claimed that numbers reported such as these account for only a fraction of the true figure, since victims often do not feel safe enough to come forward. Pleasure to you.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. He's making a very strong speech. He, like me, is wearing a World AIDS Day ribbon today. And is he aware, talking about the global context for trans people and the challenges they face, that there's also challenges around trans people who have HIV. Men who have sex with men are 19 times more likely to have HIV, but trans women are 49 times more likely to have HIV. And there needs to be special attention paid to provision of HIV services globally for the trans community.
I thank my honourable friend. As always, his contributions to the House are always of interest, and I'm glad that he's been able to raise that very important point this afternoon. The UK, and indeed each other nation, has a long way to go to ensure that transgender people are safe from violent crime. A start would be to ensure that everybody feels safe and secure in reporting crime that they are a victim of. Organisations such as Stonewall have been working relentlessly to encourage transgender people to report the violence they face, but the reality is that many victims say they are concerned they will not be taken seriously. Both the police and the government must work harder to get the message across that victims of violence will be taken seriously and will be safe and secure if they report the crime. For many transgender people, finding and maintaining work can be far more difficult than it is for others. A survey by the Gender Identity Research and Education Society in late 2000 found that post-transition, 2 in 3 transgender people had left their job, either because they were forced or because they felt there was no other choice. Although it is considered the conditions have improved since that date of the survey, there is still far more work to be done. More recently, to mark International Transgender Day of Visibility 2016, a less varied poll revealed that around 36% of transgender people today have left their job due to their transition. The Equality Act 2010 states that people cannot be discriminated in the workplace due to their gender reassignment, though it is far too often that the Act is ignored. Thousands of transgender people each year in the UK are made to feel uncomfortable, intimidated and subjected to unwanted comments. The trade unions, Unison and PCS, have both been campaigning to make transgender people aware of their rights at work and have worked alongside transgender people to fight cases of unlawful discrimination. Unfortunately, there is only so much trade unions can do to protect people when discrimination can be so rife. In a similar way to how victims of transgender hate crime often do not come forward, many that are discriminated against in the workplace are afraid to also. Though this is unsurprising considering the lack of support they often receive, unlike with other forms of workplace discrimination, there is also a lack of high-profile cases of transgender people being discriminated against, meaning that many are not fully aware of their rights or the procedures to make a claim. Unfortunately, for many transgender people, discrimination does not begin only in the workplace. The education system in the UK is often woefully inept to accommodate transgender people. It is estimated that currently only 5 to 10% of transgender people begin transitioning under the age of 18. But for those that are often failed by their schools, colleges and sixth forms. A report earlier this year by Susie Green, chair of the Mermaids charity, claimed that transgender pupils are more likely to have poor attendance and attainment records and are often seen as a problem for the schools to overcome. Although schools will often want to best accommodate transgender pupils, most are not equipped with the right knowledge or resources to do so. The difficulties that transgender people face in school are often focused on physical accommodation, with efforts to establish gender-neutral facilities. And although this is incredibly important, there is often not enough focus on why transgender people fall behind academically. A number of local authorities now produce guidance for head teachers, but equally important are the NGOs and charities which deliver awareness training for school staff. In and around Bridgend County, which includes my constituency of Ogmore, a Brighter Future Altogether benefiting Bridgend group provide crucial workshops to ensure that schools are better prepared to help transgender pupils excel. For those that begin transitioning at university, there can be similar issues. A 2014 report by the NUS showed that 28,000 transgender students are currently studying in the UK, yet over half of them have seriously considered dropping out. The same report also found that 1 in 3 transgender students have faced some form of bullying or discrimination. Student unions across the UK have been fighting to make campuses more welcoming for transgender students, and usually universities themselves have been willing to learn and adapt, and I pay tribute to those universities that have adapted to support people that identify as transgender. From schools to universities to the workplace, transgender people face discrimination at each turn in their life, and the persistent prejudice and danger can manifest itself into mental health issues. A recent study in the US journal Pediatrics claims that these issues can raise if a trans person is not able to express their identity or if they do not feel accepted. The LGBT mental health charity PACE claims that 48% of transgender people under the age of 26 have attempted suicide, in comparison to only 6% for all adults under the age of 26. Similarly, reports by Mind, as mentioned by other members of the House, have claimed that LGBT people in general are more likely to suffer from depression and anxiety, with other studies demonstrating that transgender individuals are particularly at risk. This in turn can lead to people being abused through alcohol and recreational drugs. Although there is little research into the prevalence of substance abuse amongst transgender people in the UK, the US National Transgender Discrimination Survey of 2008 and 2009 showed that over a quarter of participants had abused drugs or alcohol. Unfortunately, the high rate of mental health issues among the transgender community is a problem that can be exacerbated by a lack of sufficient mental health facilities. The truth is that there is a serious lack of facilities for those with mental health issues in the UK. According to the King's Fund, 40% of trusts saw a cut to their mental health budget in 2015-16, which has led to widespread evidence of poor quality of care. Mental health charities have voiced their concerns as these cuts, with Mind recently concerned that these cuts fall squarely on patient care. Better mental health services would benefit everyone that finds themselves needing them, but considering the high proportion of transgender people needing help with their mental health, it would be specifically help those that are the focus of our debate today. In conclusion, Mr Deputy Speaker, the discrimination and prejudice that transgender people are met with for living their lives is a stain on our society. For these people, simply everyday tasks that we take for granted can be laborious and tiresome when they face unequal treatment at every turn. Our schools and our workplaces are often woefully inept to accommodate transgender people, and the protection they receive from harassment and violence is far from sufficient. We owe it to the transgender people in each of our constituencies to come together to take a concerted action to help deliver equality for everyone, and we must start by recognising the scale of the problem. In this week alone, around 10 to 15 incidents of hate crime against transgender people will be reported to the police, and over the course of the month, more and more will leave their universities and their places of work. We cannot claim to be working towards an equal society if we do not include transgender people in that vision. I sincerely hope, Mr Deputy Speaker, that the debate today will help raise awareness of the issue and mark the start of a journey to make the UK inclusive for everybody.